I am Dr. H. Ratnam, Assistant Professor retired. These days I have been teaching English grammar and English literature for the benefit of the students, those who want to go for competitive examinations, and for those who want to learn English language sitting at home. For these two categories of people, my classes or these videos will help you much, I hope. Recently, Telangana government and Andhra Pradesh government have announced DSC examinations, and soon dates will be announced for the conduct of the examination, DSC examination. And for DSC examination, my classes are of much useful because English grammar, I'm teaching English grammar and I'm teaching English literature also. Literature is useful for those who are appearing for school assistant examination in English. So for a long time, my videos you can see and get much benefit out of them. If you like these videos, you can share it to others and subscribe it for your continuous programming. In my earlier classes, I taught on literary terms, ballad, sonnet, elegy, and the like. Today, in this class, I want to teach you on some schools and movements in literature are there. And those schools and movements are specific for the ideas of their own contemporary society. One such movement is the metaphysical school or poets, the metaphysical movement or otherwise. Romantic poets, metaphysical poets. Like that, poets are classified in different ages. Our present classification is metaphysics or metaphysical poets. Metaphysics is a term applied to literature also. Actually, physics is related to some other science, but this is metaphysics. So that means newness. Everything is put to change. The meaning of metaphysics is newness, or everything is put to change. Everything, there is a law of change for everything. Everything gets changed. So metaphysics also tried to present new ideas that were never disclosed by anyone else. So that is their distinction. They wanted to stand as distinctive personalities by writing metaphysical poetry. The term metaphysical as applied to poetry was first used by Dr. Johnson, who borrowed it from Dryden's phrase about Donne. Here are three personalities. One is Dr. Johnson, and the other is Dryden, and still other is John Donne. Actually, John Donne is famous for metaphysical poetry. And from John Donne, Dryden copied it, and he has elaborated it in his writings in England. The qualities, Dr. Johnson's account of the school is not worth quoting, though its general combinations is unjust to some delightful poets such as Herbert and Van. Herbert, 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 Van, Vaughan, Van. Van is the name of the writer. And so these are some of the Johnson's very meticulous comment on metaphysical writers is that it is not much useful, but yet accepted. It's not much useful, but accepted as a form of writing. Mainly metaphysical poets were men of learning, and to show their learning was their whole endeavor. Metaphysical poets are the men of highly learned men, highly learned men. And so they want to show their learning is their appetite, is their sole motto, to show their knowledge, to show their learning is their motto. Metaphysical poets were men of learning, and to show their learning was their whole endeavor. If the father of criticism, that is Aristotle, has rightly denominated poetry an imitative art, Aristotle said that poetry is an imitative art. Students writing for competitive examinations must note this point. The father of English criticism, that is Aristotle, said that poetry is from nature. Poetry is an art copied from nature, because every object is taken by the writer from nature. And these articles or these manifestations from nature are put into some writing by the writers in a very artful manner, so that the writing of poetry as an art, it is an imitation from nature. So mainly metaphysics concentrate on love poetry. So medieval writing and early modern writings are concentrated on love poetries, because love is the most primordial thing for men. So they consider it as very important art. The metaphysical poets. The metaphysical style was established by John Donne. I have already told you. The metaphysical school was established by John Donne. We must remember whenever metaphysical poetry is heard, so we must immediately recall John Donne into our minds. Early in the 17th century, Dryden of the next generation remarked that he affects the metaphysics not only in his satires, but in his amorous verses, where nature only should reign. In amorous writings are writings appeal to the heart, mainly love poetry. So that appeals to the heart much for the people. In their amorous writings, these metaphysical writers are seen. The minds of the fair sex with nice speculations of philosophy, when he should engage their hearts and emotion there with the softness of love. A writer should engage the hearts of the readers with the softness of love in his writings. So that way these metaphysical poets engaged the readers in verses about love. Characteristics of the metaphysical school. Delight in novel thought and expression. Delight in novel thought and expression. So that is the metaphysical's idea. So the first one is delight, and the other one is novel thought. Novel thought means new thought. So these are the two very important aspects of this metaphysical writers. Metaphysical poem, in Johnson's words, desired to say what they hoped had been never said before. So that is their idea. It was never said before. So such an idea that these metaphysical writers used to write like that. John Donne once wrote in a poem that the metaphysical conceits and metaphysical images are like this. He compared the half-seen moon to lovers. One half of the moon is for one person, and the other half of the moon is for another person. So that way, their new thoughts and new images, they wish to put it into this literature, metaphysical literature. Far-fetched images. This is another important aspect of metaphysical poetry. Far-fetched images. A characteristic feature of all metaphysical verse is indulgence in dissimilar images or discovery of occult resemblances in things apparently unlike. So new discovery of new images, new thoughts are put into, I told you, metaphysical poetry. A comparison is often instituted between objects that have ostensibly little in common with each other. Cowley, for example, compares, Cowley is another writer, Cowley. Cowley, for example, compares being in love with different women to traveling through different countries. So this is one idea expressed by Cowley. Love with different women is like traveling in different countries. So that means different experiences from different women. This is some kind of thought in Western countries. It may be observed in India. Different love in different women is a kind of absurd idea in India. But in Western countries, it is not like that. They enjoy full freedom of life, and so that Cowley expressed this idea. Love with different women is like traveling in different countries. The terminology also used in this poetry is a kind of hyperbolic and ostentatious terminology. Ostentatious means high sounding. Hyperbolic also is something like beyond our reach, beyond the reach of common man. Such terminology is used by these metaphysical poets. T.S. Eliot, on his remarks on these metaphysical poets, said, "In the task of trying to find the verbal equivalent for states of mind and feeling, the metaphysicals made themselves difficult to understand. Metaphysicals made themselves to understand, very difficult to understand in trying to give high-sounding words and high-sounding objects. And so that it is a kind of difficult task to understand the metaphysics." Then next idea is learning. Metaphysical verse is laden with the scholarship of its own authors. I have already told you, these metaphysicals are highly learned people, and so that they have infused highly learned objects in their writings. A whole book of knowledge might be compiled from the scholarly allusions in Donne and Cowley alone. So Donne and Cowley's poetry, by reading them, one can compile a big book of knowledge and learning. A volume of knowledge can be compiled by reading Donne and Cowley. To such learning in itself, they could, of course, be no objection. It is no enrichment of the poet's mind and part of the equipment of his high vocation. So Dr. Johnson noted the metaphysicians sometimes drew their conceits from recesses of learning, not very much frequented by common readers of poetry. The poet is not made by what he can give at his liberal way, unless his own genuine can transmute it. As Johnson also said, no man could be born a metaphysical poet, nor assume the dignity of a writer, but by learning and but by imitating the other writers and imitating the objects from the nature, one can become a writer. A writer can never, writer is not born, writer is made. Metaphysical poetry resolves itself into the two broad divisions of amorous and religious verse. The former was written largely by the courtly poets. And metaphysical poetry is divided into two segments or segregations. One is amorous and the second one is religious. And most of these metaphysical writings are taken up by writers of the court in medieval times and in early modern times as well. Writers were employed, writers were encouraged by the kings. They were stationed in the court itself. And so most of the writers, they wrote amorous writings, and the second quality is religious writings. Amorous, I already told you, that is, amorous means love poetry, heart-touching poetry. And the second quality is religious poetry. So these are the two categories of writings written by writers. So this way we can understand the metaphysicals of the 17th century combined two things, both soon to pass away, the fantastic dialects of medieval love poetry and the simple, sensuous strain. Fantastic and the simple, both combined together by these metaphysical writers, fantastic and bombastic, and the simple as well. So this is something about the metaphysical movement, metaphysical writers, and the metaphysical art. And so that by going through this video, you can gain some information about metaphysical poetry for competitive examinations. And those who want to learn literature, English literature, you can enjoy this. I hope that you can enjoy this video. And after going through this video, you can share it and subscribe it. Well.